Welcome everybody this morning to Sunday service here at Ananda Village. And for those of you online, I welcome you as well. I want to begin today with the reading from Whispers from Eternity. Intoxicate me with the wine of thy love. Intoxicate me with devotion's wine. I will drink of thee until death. My earthly desires are now dead, and I will live in thee forever. A thrilling current runs through each cell of my body and through every opening of my love for thee. Saturated with devotion, I will enter the heaven of thy presence. Groping blindly, the urge of my devotion suddenly flings open the secret door in my soul. Oh, what bliss I feel on beholding thy light. Welcome again, everybody. And today, of course, as it was announced, the topic was the inner kingdom. But I have a confession to make. You know, normally when I do Sunday service, and I suspect most of us who do share with you on Sunday, we have a routine, and the routine I have is that I'll look in the week or so before Sunday service, I'll check the reading. Sunday, and if I was doing it next week, probably today, tomorrow, I would check the reading, see what the topic is, and I would be thinking about it. And as the week passed, I would start to write, maybe a thought would come up, and I would write a note, and I'd write a note. And so and then by Saturday, I'd have maybe I'd have a few thoughts. And I take Saturday morning to compose, put things together, try to get a little bit of coherence, maybe, flows right, maybe think of some stories to illustrate the points. I suspect most of us probably do something like that. Well, that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. And then something came up. A wedding. I suspect that many of you attended that wedding yesterday. And for those of you online, let me explain. We had a very nice wedding yesterday afternoon, 4:30 it started. And it was a couple of young folks here, Janaka and Uma, here at the very lovely souls. A marriage took place. Ananta and Maria, they conducted it. And the place we were pretty much full here. It was such a joyful occasion. And I was so very, very touched and inspired by it. And of course, maybe marriages are meant to do that. But Nayaswami Maria made a very good point that a marriage, of course, is between those two, that couple, of course. And everybody comes and gives blessings to that couple. And that's the focal point, of course. But the couple also is serving as an instrument for all of us to come together and to celebrate. And so they play their part. And of course, they did a very good job of playing their part, of being that couple who brought us all together. And I would suspect those of you who were there, you all felt that inspiration. At the end, everybody's so joyful. And so I wanted to just mention that. But of course, it has inspired me to speak about something else, is what happened. Because I went home and I was inspired on that. I looked at the inner kingdom and I thought, I'll try to mention it. But and I'm going to segue here and start a little bit off topic of it seemingly, but I hope maybe I can bring it in. Those of you who have lived here at Ananda Village for some time, I want to ask you, have you ever heard somebody say something like this to you? Oh, it's a really wonderful place. I really enjoy it. Tell me something about it. And then maybe you tell them a little bit about it, and they say, oh, that's really so great. But how do you do when you have to go out into the real world. Have you ever heard that? The real world. Oh, you have such lovely children here. They go to school. How do they do when they have to go into the real world? And the implication, of course, is the real world. They don't say this overtly, but we are living in a fantasy world. We've probably come here to escape, facing the hard realities of day-to-day life, the dog-eat-dog, the seeking of success and fortune and material and all of it. And maybe underneath that, they're saying, and look, and I'm the real devotee because I'm facing these while you're out here enjoying yourself in the hills. You ever heard something like that? So many times you start putting up with it after a while. You say, look, okay. And of course, is that right? Is that the real world out there? And of course, after a while, you let them know that's the delusional world out there. That is not necessarily the real world. What in the world is wrong with seeking and trying to demonstrate peace, harmony, showing an example that people can work together? And Swamiji would often say, he said, if somebody comes here, and which people do, they would say to him, he'd say, oh, you have a lot of, really nice people here. They're really, really good. And they're really nice. And Swami said, yes, that you could say that if there were one or two nice people here and they seem to be doing well. But when everybody is nice and doing well, prospering, you have to ask the question, what are they doing to make them that way? Because people come and they are here. And I think that wedding yesterday illustrated something. It illustrated something very beautiful. And anybody who came, if they didn't live here already, they came, they participated in that, they saw something is going on here that is extremely beautiful and that needs to be honored and mentioned. And all of us who come to that wedding, we go there, of course, to add our blessings to that. But I think all of us walked out of that wedding feeling tremendously blessed. And it reinforced something and it was a point that when I went home, where inner kingdom kind of went over there, and another topic came up. And I thought, what was I inspired about? I was thinking, that was so inspiring. And when, let's say, a young couple gets together, they're starting their journey of life together, and it's such everybody wants to reinforce that, sending blessings if they can succeed, and really, it's a celebration of hope, is what a wedding like that is. It's hope. Now, not hope, you could say hope for this, hope for that, they succeed and everything goes good. But it's more than them. It's an affirmation. I felt that was an affirmation of hope, that this place has the ability to raise people's hopes, but it gave me hope for the future of our community, to see young people like that carrying the message forward and carrying the torch of light, service, dedication. I just was so inspired by that, and see good examples, and they were both, Uma and Janaka are good examples, to be representatives of that hope. And it reminded me of something that Master Paramhansa Yogananda said. And we read in the Bible, it was in, it was St. Paul. We read in the Bible, St. Paul, in one of his letters, he speaks about faith, charity, and hope, those three cardinal virtues. And what Master said about that, he said, of those three, hope was the most important. He says, because if we do not hope, we cannot take one step forward on the spiritual path. And he said, it is like, I think he said, or maybe I interjected, I can't even remember now, but it was when I read this years ago, he said, its hope is like a lantern in the dark, that in your very dark night, he says, and maybe the wind is blowing, and let's say it blows that lantern out, the candle or the flame goes out in the lantern, old style lantern, and you're in the dark, and what do? You stop. You stop. And you can't get started again until you light the lamp once more. And he says, hope is like that. And he says, hope is the antidote of despair. And I think if you look, I think it's perhaps I'm projecting here, but I look about the world today, and I think the world needs hope. It needs examples of hope in terms of individuals, and this marriage is one, but of course I'm sure there are many other marriages, but people come out of that, a marriage, not just this one, they come out with hope. But I think individuals we need as a society, as a world society, we need to have hope. And Master said that one of the largest sins that we can commit is to destroy another person's hope, to discourage them. He says, because once we lose anybody, an individual, we lose hope, even a society loses hope, a group of people lose hope. When you lose hope, you find you cannot go forward again until that hope is revived. And so you stop. The spiritual as a devotee, we spiritually come to a grinding halt. And I think there may have been times, I know I've had times when, things seemed a little bleak at times, challenges come up. I can't say I lost hope. Devotee so much if you have the guru there keeping you in the state of hope. But nevertheless, I could see the potential. People do lose hope. And that hope needs to be revived. But even if that hope begins to dwindle, we need to encourage it and to do what we can. And to the degree that we can see that in others, so just as the discouragement of others, of hope in other people, is a very negative thing to do, the opposite is also true. The encouragement of hope, the bringing of hope, the giving of hope to them. And what you find is, just as where I started with those people that say, the implication is one is escaping this, escaping that. The real world is a hard place. Think of the premise that people work under, if that is the primary premise that they have. This is a hard world. This is a bad place. This is discouraging. And that premise that they are carrying into the day-to-day, do we not think that it's going to affect how they see the world? Of course it will, as opposed to the other premise, which would be the opposite. There's hope. There's hope. Something's going to happen. It's for the good. And if we maintain that attitude of hope, and for ourselves, yes, but I think all of us have, just as you could say unwittingly, they weren't maybe thinking about it, as Uma and Janaka yesterday, thinking of the effect they were having on everybody around them, because I imagine, they were trying to make it through that ceremony, but they were, but nevertheless, they were serving as instruments of God, in that instruments of the Guru, because they were bringing hope into people can't even verbalize what it was that they were hopeful for, but it was that feeling. Because then if you have that premise that this is not the opposite of the people who think that's the real world, there can be beautiful places. And if that's your premise, everything that flows from that is going to be very, very different than if you think in despair, or this is a negative place. So in a sense, all of us are blessed to be able to participate in that, but there is a truth to it. The real world is not one of despair, of discouragement, of negativity. The real world is one of the opposite, because that is our essential nature. Now, the question would naturally arise from that, well, how do you create hope? And because here we're speaking about hope, we want to stimulate that, maybe in other people, but I don't think really, I mean, yes, we can help hope flourish, but I don't think in ourselves, we don't really create hope. We awaken hope, I think is a more accurate way to say it. Because hope is our nature. Hope is that primal desire of each of us to seek the light. It's like where's the plants? There they are. It's like the plants will turn to the sun. That's their nature. They're going to go toward light. And each of us on some level, even the criminals and the people that are negative, the people that say, oh, it's terrible, their basic nature is they want to be happy and they want to go toward the light, because that seed is implanted in creation itself, that expansion. We're going to go to the light, we're going to expand, we're going to seek. And Master said, when he said that the seeking of happiness is what all of us are after. And that expansiveness that comes is the fruit of hope. And it's the seed of hope, you could say. So we don't create it, but we can awaken it in ourselves. And we can help to awaken it in each other. You can't impose hope on your neighbor. You know, he doesn't, especially if he doesn't want it, which is the case. But you can stimulate it and awaken that in other people. It's like Master said that when, he said that when we come onto the spiritual path, sleeping soldiers from past lives are awakened. And what is that? We feel hopeful, but they're awakened, but they must be, they come to our aid. That's why when we come onto the spiritual path, we're so enthusiastic. We have those enthusiasms many times. We'll have interesting experiences early on in our spiritual life that change us. And those soldiers have come to our aid. Well, if you have an army of soldiers, you have a duty to feed them. Or they go back, rouse them. They go back to sleep. They say, where's the meal? They're not. The general's not giving me my due, and they go back to sleep or they go. So we have that duty, but we can awaken those soldiers, and hope comes. I know when I first came onto this path, I look back at my early life. I was not raised in a spiritual family. They're good. My parents were good. They were good, but secular, very secular, not religious at all. And actually, I had no friends that had any interest in religion. I didn't know if they went to church or what. I never went to I didn't have to step into a church until I was about, except for a marriage. Somebody got married, I had to go. Other than that, I never stepped into a church until I was in my 20s. I didn't know anything about that. So I wasn't brought up in a religious environment at all. But very interesting, and it was foreign to me, and I had no idea what it was about. And I went to college. Now, college was different, because you meet people from all over, and all different, and some of them were religious people. I had a roommate who was a very devout, as much as a 19-year-old can be. Roommate, and he was a devout Catholic. And I just had the hardest time, and we would, how you do, the sophomore, you start, going debating all this stuff. And he was my friend, so I granted him space for that, but I had to learn a lot. And then you start meeting people from other religions. And then very interestingly, I ended up being an anthropology major. And I was interested, in religion was one of the things that you study as a social phenomena. And I started studying religion as a social phenomena. And after a period of time goes by, I start reading about saints, about this, about that. And I started thinking, this is kind of interesting. It'd be kind of nice if it was true. But no, not yet. But I was appreciative. I says, look, because you start to see, and that when you're anti-religious at that age, you start looking at how the terrible religion has been historically. But then you start giving it some sympathy, and you say, it's changing, and you start to read the lives of the saints. So I went like that, and then I ran into a bookstore, and I saw the biography of a yogi. And I'm going to get a drink of water. And I picked it up, and I had the very same experience that Swami Kriyananda says in that movie, The Answer. He reads in his autobiography. Picked it up, looked in there. I was okay with Luther Burbank. Swami didn't go for that, but I was. It was okay, Luther Burbank. But then I read the first chapter. There's all sorts of things happening in that first chapter. And I said, oh, come on, this is no good. So then I put it back on the shelf. And I didn't buy it. But the following Sunday, I was out walking. It was this college student. No, I was just graduated from college, actually. But I was still living in the college town. And I was out walking on Sunday. And so I was walking down the street. I had a very interesting experience. It's sort of like Swami also, that he had walked out of the bookstore in New York City, and then he had sort of, and then he went back in, and they had to buy that book. Well, I wasn't walking down the street, and it flashed in my mind's eye, like in your mind's eye, this orange cover, the SRF version, that orange cover flashed in my mind. And I thought, what is that? But it was very striking. So I said, I got to go buy that book. And I went up to the bookstore, bought the book, and of course, everything changed. And the reason it changed is because I had studied religion and from an objective point of view, I did have this feeling, wouldn't it be nice if some of this was true? It would just be nice. And I wanted it to be true in a way, but I just couldn't accept it. And I read the autobiography, and I still couldn't accept it. But I just felt hope. That is what because I was convinced by the author. I liked the author, and I just said, this man is either totally fabricating this because it was so outlandish, or he's telling the truth. I didn't see a middle ground. And I said, he's got to be telling the truth. And that thought gave me hope. And I mentioned this because I mentioned about the premises that we work under in life. The total premise of my life changed. That religion was false. There was no inner kingdom. See, I mentioned it. There was no inner kingdom. So it was what? But then I read that and I began to ask, why is inner kingdom or heaven mentioned 80 times? 80 times in the Bible, or more, at least 80 times. Why is it mentioned? And then what about all those saints that history is, throughout history have come forward to testify? What about that? What about those people who have those after-death experiences and they see there's some transcendent reality, what about them? And I began to think, well, of course, now I know. And I began to, because my premise had changed, because I had hope. I had hope in the future. I had hope that here was somebody, an author, who had answers. I had hope, and so on and so on. And my life completely changed because of that. And it was because of hope that I was working now from that as a foundation. I didn't understand any of it particularly, a little bit resonant, but then I went forward. Now, what do you do then? And that was the question. I had all this hope. That's when I met Swami Kriyananda. And I think it was because, of course, the whole premise, my whole consciousness, my whole magnetism changed, and somehow that came into the picture. So about 2-3 weeks later, I ended up meeting Swami Kriyananda. And Master said about those, going back to what St. Paul, hope, faith, charity, he said hope is the most important. He said, but hope must be supported in the long run by experience. And hope plus experience will give you faith. And so to take that hope and leave it as an orphan, it's like the soldiers. The soldiers are going to go back to sleep. They're awakened. You awakened it. But unless you take it to the next level, and they're going to go back into quietude. And so hope plus experience. So the question is, I have all these hopes. What do I do about it? And this is why the Masters came. I think the Masters came to give the world at large hope. Society, and especially now we're in a transitional period. Now we're speaking centuries here now. They were in a transitional period, and it would be easy to lose hope. Tumultuous times, perhaps, you could lose hope. What's the meaning of all this? A materialistic, it's seemingly very, very nihilistic in many ways. Lose hope. And I think the Masters came, and they say this even, that they came to deliver the techniques to be able to have experience, because they perceived the hope of many, many souls seeking God. And in response to those desires, those hopes, those spiritual desires, they answered that call by bringing those techniques, the keys, you could say, to the kingdom, as it said about St. Peter, I give to you the keys to the kingdom. But it's just not techniques. There was something more going on there too, I think, when Peter, he says that to Peter, who do they say I am? And some of the disciples, they said, oh, John the Baptist, or Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets, Elias. And then he said, who do you, Peter, say? And Peter answered him, thou art the Christ. Thou art the Christ, the Son of God. And because of that, then Jesus says to him, you know, you have perceived it, and because of that, on that I will build, that rock of thy perception, I will build my church. Now, he didn't say it, he didn't, of course, you know, religion, formal religion says, well, that's the church, you know, the outward church, but the church of cosmic consciousness in Peter was built on that perception of being able to see deeper, the intuitive perception that Peter was able to see, and he built in that. And I think this is what we have to have too. But he did give him the keys, and Master did say that also represented techniques, methods by which we could turn that hope into actual experience. And this is what we need. And this, you could look at the life, the experience we read about Dr. Lewis. He was a devout Christian in his way. He was a devout Christian. But he didn't have support. He hoped it to be true. Master gave him that blessing, that experience. Same thing, Gyanamata, same thing. Gave her the Om vibration. And this is what he did to countless numbers of devotees. He brought hope, but yet he also brought that blessings that each of them need. And I think this, if we go forward, our job now is be messengers. And I think this is, you could say, us as a community here, as Ananda, we're messengers of hope. We can inspire others. We're not just here, just like Uma and Janaka were not just there for themselves. They were there for something larger. Well, all of us are not here at Ananda, this property, for ourselves. We're here for a larger mission. And when you have many souls coming together, you can generate quite a bit of power from that. And our mission is to create that light that goes out, that hope. We give hope to people that we have not met, will never probably meet. I know when I was serving in Rhode Island that people would donate to us. And they would, and I never, in all the years I was there, I never met them. And I called them. I remember calling one of them, and we talked, thanking them, for your donation. And I said, you should come. He says, no, I don't know. He says, you give me hope. What you're doing gives me hope, with all of your doing. And there are thousands of people who look to us, maybe much more than that, because we give hope, just as Master gave hope. Anybody in this world who's doing a good work gives hope. Yes, it's not darkness. Yes, there is life, and I think there is light. And I think that's the embodiment of what we do, all of us can do, in serving God's work, serving Guru's work, serving Swami's vision here for Ananda Sangha. So God bless all of you.
There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine,
Dance through a meadow,
or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom but don't see their dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found.
there's joy all around us.
Why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Life is beautiful, life is gay, when I give myself away, when I Let me see thee everywhere, hear thy melodies in the air. Let me feel thy strength in me, give me joy to share. Life is beautiful, life is gay, when I give myself away, when I live to please thee, Lord, dancing in thy ray. Let me see thee everywhere, hear thy melodies in the air. Let me feel thy strength in me, give me joy to share.